What if your next craving wasn't actually your choice, but your gut microbiome calling the shots? Because new science shows that the bacteria in your gut might be deciding not just what you eat, but also why you want it in the first place. And if you're feeling stressed or low or constantly reaching for sugar, that might not be a willpower problem. That might actually be a gut problem. So your gut and your brain are in constant conversation. They're linked by the vagus nerve, hormones, and also chemical messengers. So all of that is basically a system called the gut-brain axis. And your gut bacteria are part of that conversation. They help digest food, but they also release compounds or byproducts, metabolites, whatever you want to call it, that talk directly to your brain. So a 2021 review in Microbiome found that gut microbes can influence appetite by affecting hormones like GLP-1, which you would have heard of if you've heard of Ozempic, and PYY, so the ones that tell your brain when you're full or you're hungry and play a role in appetite regulation. So when your gut microbiome changes, those appetite signals and even your mood can change too. But here's where it gets really interesting. Scientists have found that certain gut bacteria can actually change what you crave next. So in the next part of this video, I'm going to be breaking down what those studies actually found, and it also might make you look at cravings in a totally different way. So what does the science actually show? Now, there is still a lot to learn, and there is new information coming out all of the time in this space. This has been one of my favorite areas of interest over the last couple of years. But, the evidence we do have, it's fascinating and it does paint a good picture, but it is always changing too or getting added to. So let's have a look at what we do have so far. So one human study found that people who describe themselves as chocolate lovers, so before they started the trial, they described themselves as chocolate lovers, they had different gut metabolites than those who didn't crave chocolate or were chocolate indifferent, even though both groups ate the same diet during the trial. So that suggests that some cravings could be tied to differences in how our gut and our metabolism work and not just taste or willpower. Now, in animal studies, this connection actually goes even further. So researchers at Caltech gave mice antibiotics, and they did that so that they could wipe out their gut bacteria. That was the goal. And so those mice, when they had their gut bacteria wiped out, they started eating 50% more sugary pellets than they normally did. Once their microbiome was restored, their sugar intake dropped again. Now, that's of course only in mice. But if that translates into humans as well, that just shows the potential influence that these microbes in our gut can actually have on our overall dietary choices, which is pretty insane. Now, another study published in Nature Microbiology found that a specific gut bacterium linked to sugar intake. So meaning, that certain microbes may actually drive how much sugar that we crave. Now, human data is still really early on that, but I am actually really excited to see more research in this space, because if we can pinpoint which bacteria specifically are linked to eating more sugary food or processed foods, or even eating more in general, or having worse cravings, and how their numbers change depending on the specific types of foods that we eat, it could completely shift how we actually define what healthy means for us versus what's not, and also may change the whole, everything in moderation spiel. So really excited for more in that space, but it is looking like there may be specific bacteria that can influence or exacerbate our cravings, especially for sugar. And those come from eating sugary foods. So it's not just about food either, though. Around 90% of your body's serotonin, so your main mood chemical, is also made in the gut. So when the microbiome gets thrown off, your mood, your stress response, and appetite signals can all shift together as well. So the big picture of all of this is that your diet shapes your microbes in your gut, and your microbes can shape your cravings right back. So basically, it's like a feedback loop, one that can either help you or keep you stuck, essentially. So if your gut helps you decide what you crave, then changing what you feed it changes the messages that you get back from it. And that is the key message that I want you to take away from this, if anything at all. So I'm going to say it once more. If your gut helps you decide what you crave, then changing what you feed it changes the messages that you get back and that is sent to your brain, right? So on that note, let's talk about how to actually start rebalancing this feedback loop. So starting with feeding the good microbes. So think fiber-rich foods, vegetables, legumes, and whole grains. All of these things can help beneficial bacteria produce something called short-chain fatty acids. And these essentially can calm inflammation and improve gut-brain communication. Now, I could probably spend a whole hour talking about short-chain fatty acids and the different types of them and the amazing benefits that they can actually have, or each of them have. But I'll spare you the details, at least in this video. Just know that these are very important compounds, molecules, whatever you want to call it. Now, the next thing is you want to starve the noisy ones. So microbes that love sugar and processed fat, they thrive when they get it, obviously, and they reward you with stronger cravings as a result of that. But if you cut their supply, then those signals will fade, which is often why you crave sugary foods less when you don't have them for a while. So if you don't have it for a couple of weeks, you may find that those cravings go away. Now, you also want to support diversity in your gut. So foods like yogurt and kefir and sauerkraut and kimchi, they naturally contain live cultures that help diversify your gut bacteria. So you don't need to rely on probiotic pills. There's a time and place for that, but a small serving of these real foods each day does more long-term for balance and gut diversity than, these pills will. But also important to note that if you don't create the right environment in your gut first by eating those fiber-rich foods and consuming whole and nutrient-dense foods, then the live cultures or the probiotics are not going to stick around, or the ones you want at least. So it's really important to make sure that you're actually creating the right environment and doing it on a constant basis, because it does change with, whatever you're putting in your body, and also stress levels and things like that. So probiotics can have different purposes, as in, for immunity, for if you really just feel like you need to replenish some good bacteria in there, but it's not something you want to be on long-term, because there's not enough evidence and data on it yet. And if you feed the same bacteria and you're not getting, a diverse range of many different strains of bacteria, you could be overpopulating certain ones. And because of that, that's going to push out some other ones from your gut and not allow space for them all. So there's that. But the time that I do often recommend them is if you've been on a course of antibiotics. It can be good to get specific strains that are often lost when you take those antibiotics to replace that. Okay, so the next thing I want to mention is stabilizing your rhythm. So lack of sleep and stress and irregular eating, all of these things can throw off your gut-brain axis. Even just improving sleep and meal timing can reduce emotional and late night eating. So make sure all of these things are as calm as they possibly can be. And lastly, reframe your next craving. So if you catch yourself, reaching for something that maybe isn't the best for your gut, ask yourself, is this hunger? Is this habit? Or is it, signaling from your microbiome from maybe previous habits that aren't so helpful? And it's not about having to analyze every single snack that you're having, but that simple pause can give you a moment of awareness that actually breaks that loop. And that is the hardest part of it all, like actually breaking that cycle. But also it's when you get to that point, it's so freeing when you manage to do so. So it's absolutely worth that 2-week struggle just to get to that. And you'll find it often does change. It takes about a week to 2 weeks to stop craving the things that you currently are. Okay, so just to be clear, your gut microbes, they're not controlling you like a puppet, although ironically, every time I imagine how it works, I always think of these little organisms in the gut pulling strings and getting a different reaction. So, that's not quite the case. That they are influencing your biology, but you still have control over the environment that they live in based on what you're feeding it and, external factors as well. Most of this research that we've talked about shows influence, not total control. And a lot of the detailed cause and effect comes from animal studies, not humans. But across both the human and the animal data, there is a clear pattern that the state of your microbiome can affect appetite and reward and mood and cravings, to name a few. So instead of blaming your willpower, it makes more sense to actually work with your biology and start improving the system that drives those signals in the first place. Because at the end of the day, cravings, they're usually not just in your head. They're part of the gut-brain conversation, hormones, all of the things that you can actually influence. Feed your gut the right way and you'll start noticing that your body's wants or desires actually feel a lot clearer and easier to trust, okay? So I do have another video on hitting gut killers as well if you want to know more about that and how different foods impact your gut microbiome. But otherwise, I hope you found this helpful, and please remember to subscribe and like this video and share it with any friends or family that you think may benefit from it. And if you have any questions, please comment them below. All right, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.